Too smoky? How big the sky is. It's so big. No, there's one right in front of the car. He's just coming around to the other side. They're looking at us like, you're in the way. Oh my gosh, they're coming. Hey friends, it's Jess and Jericho. It is a blessing for you to be here. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful that you're here. I wanted to share my trip with you when I went to Montana for Sukkot. Took some time off a couple weeks ago for, from publishing content. And I visited my parents, like I told you, and I also went to Montana. So I wanted to share a little bit of Yahweh's beautiful creation with you and some of the studies that we did. So I still can't get over how big that Montana sky is. They're definitely not kidding. It is huge. Such a big sky. I saw so many beautiful sunrises. It was really, really amazing. The weather was really great. It wasn't too cold, but there were some days that was really warm, and we went to the park and we had fun. And we had different studies every single day, and I want to share a couple of the different things that we did together with you. So one of the first studies that we did was really just a kind of a question that someone prompted to us. And we're going to talk about the two different parallels here, and it's just so beautiful. So in the Exodus, Yahweh was proving his people in the wilderness when they were with Moshe. And in chapter 16, verse 4, Yahweh said unto Moshe, I will rain bread from the heavens for you. And later down in that same chapter, in verse 15, and when Yasharel saw it, they said one to another, it is manna, for they knew not what it was. And Moshe said unto them, this is the bread which Yahweh has give you to eat. So he's proving his people in the wilderness to see whether or not they walk in him and in his Torah. And he fed them bread, which fell from the heavens, rained down from the heavens. They didn't know what it was, but they knew that Yahweh had given it to them to eat. So now we're going to fast forward to Mark 1:13, where right after Yahusha was baptized, the Ruach cast him out into the wilderness, and he was there for 40 days, 40 nights. So again, we have him in the wilderness, being proven, and he was tempted by the adversary. And Yahusha said to him, no, 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 no. We do not live by bread alone, but by the word of Yahweh. And who is the word of Yahweh? Do you know? So Yahusha ended up ministering to people, and a lot of people even that studied scripture back then didn't even realize who he was. So we have some parallels here. We have people being proven in the wilderness, Yahusha in the wilderness. Then they had bread that rained down from heaven. They didn't know what it was, but it was their bread of life. Then we have Yahusha. People didn't know who he was. He was baptized, came down from heaven as well. And in John 6, verses 47 through 51, he says, Amen, amen, I say unto you, he that believes on me has everlasting life. I am the bread of life. Your fathers did eat manna in the wilderness and are dead. This is the bread which comes down from heaven. If any man eat of this bread, he shall live forever. And the bread that I will give is my flesh, which I will give for the life of this world. So we have the word that we live by, which is Yahusha, right? Yahusha means Yah is salvation. Yahuwah saves. He sacrificed himself for us if we believe in him, aka walk with him, and his Torah, right, which is the word, the law. And that's what Yahuwah was proving to the people with Moshe in the wilderness, to see whether or not they walk in his Torah and in his word, which is Yahusha. So we have a lot of parallels, a lot of foreshadowing right here, and it's just so beautiful. So the question that was promoted was, why then? Why bread that rained from heaven? What is that bread? Because they didn't know what it was. They just knew that Yahuwah rained it down from heaven for them. And people didn't know who Yahusha was. Well, some people did, but a lot of people didn't. And then that's why he was crucified, and ultimately he sacrificed himself for us. And so he is the bread of life, just like the manna was the bread that rained down from heaven. Oh, it's just so beautiful, all of the parallels. And so basically the point is here that we have two different accounts where people were proven in the wilderness, and you think, oh, I don't have food, I don't have shelter, I don't have water, I'm not going to live. But we were shown twice, and especially with Yahusha, he shows us, I can do this, and I'm doing this for you, proving that you can do it too, because, you know, we live in a world that's, you know, not so great. You know, there's not very many good things going on. I mean, of course there are, you know, we're all grateful to have this life, but you know what I mean. But it's just beautiful to see that, you know, no matter what, basically, we just need to have faith. And that's just, there were so many amazing studies that we did, but this one was really, really great for me because my faith is new, and it's just, you know, I went from believing in nothing to full on in, you know, sacred names, Torah, everything. And I do have a testimony video that I'm going to be publishing, so I'll go deeper into that. But it's just very beautiful to see all of the parallels and all of the foreshadowing, and, well, prophecy is, you know, what I guess we would say in biblical terms. But yeah, it's just so beautiful. We also went to Yellowstone Park, which was really, really cool. So we got to see Yahweh's beautiful creation. And as soon as we got there, we went to the Yellowstone Park sign and we saw a bunch of elk. And I was able to get like the very tail end of the male elk screaming. So if you are not familiar with these elk, they sound like little girls. Sounds like a little girl or somebody blowing a whistle. The male is the one who does the screaming. And it's interesting because, so he was just crossing the street, no big deal, don't mind me. He's like, you're on my territory, so you're gonna wait on my time. He crossed the street and then went to these, you know, he had a bunch of little ladies waiting for him. They were all just kind of laid out in the field. And we ended up seeing more elk on the way out as well. They were just grazing and, you know, just living life. It was beautiful to see that. Right when we got in, we went through some of the hot springs. So this was a really long trail that you can go, like there's wooden planks that you walk around. And these hot springs were really cool. These ones weren't the colored ones, but we did see those. But these ones, it was, oh my gosh, they didn't smell very great, but it was great to see them. And I just saw like on the sides, I was like, ooh, that salt looks so delicious. I was like, I wish I could take some of that salt with me. That would be so, could you imagine? How pure that salt would be. That would be so amazing. We also saw a lot of beautiful magpies. So I've never seen this bird before. They're not native to where I live. And so I kept seeing them on my walks around where we were staying in Montana. And then we saw them at Yellowstone as well. So I was able to get some pictures and videos, but they're so beautiful. They have mostly black, but then they have really, really nice, beautiful, sheer, like sheeny blue type colors, like very deep colors. They make really weird noises. I wasn't able to capture that on film, but yeah, they were just so beautiful. We also saw more of the colorful hot springs. So some of them were like crystal clear blue. Some of them were murky and kind of opaque and kind of like mud almost. And it was funny. So one of the sisters that was with us, she's like, "Can I touch it? Can I touch it?" Meanwhile, all the signs is like, "Danger, so hot," you know, and you could see it. It's like a rolling boil, you know, like very, very bubbling, massive boil. Can I touch it? Can I touch it? But there was one area where, I mean, you're not supposed to, but we were able to. So it was kind of like a stream trickling down, and it was right underneath the wooden path that we were walking on. So of course we put our hand over it first to see, like kind of hover over it to see if we could feel any hot, because obviously you could see the steam coming off of these things. They're so hot, but we were able to touch it. So it was cool because it was, you know, it was low 40s the day that we went, and it was very cloudy and tiny bit rainy. So it was cold, but I think that was perfect because we walked around a lot and we were able to warm up in the car between between our trips. But it was cool to touch it because it was like warm, even though it was cold out. So it was a weird combination. You know, to have cold weather, you assume the water's gonna be cold, but yeah, it was actually warm. Then we had a lot of wonderful jokes from one of the brothers that was there. So funny. He reminds me of one of my friends. He just says things and doesn't try to be funny, but he's hilarious. So we came across one that was really, really rolling boil. And I was like, oh, we could just bring our breakfast here, get some ladles and dip some eggs and have some hard-boiled eggs. And he says, well, we already got the smell, so might as well. Then another one was like super murky and green. And he was like, oh, that looks like my pool last summer when I forgot to have the pool boy come. And then another one that was like super bubbly and murky and blah, 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 blah. It's like, oh, that looks like my bean soup. So funny. We also went to the Yellowstone Grand Canyon, which was beautiful. I mean, everything that we saw there was beautiful, but the Grand Canyon was really, really interesting. You know, there was a big waterfall, so we get to see the start of the waterfall crashing down, and then through the canyon, you know, seeing the river go through the canyon, or the stream go through the canyon, and then seeing in the distance to see it kind of just disappearing. Basically, the whole time I was like, I'm in a Bob Ross painting. I mean, really Yahoo's creation, but, you know, every time I just look, I just see like happy little trees, happy little stream, you know. And it was just cool to see how the trees grow on these very, very steep hills and mountains and the canyon. And it was just gorgeous. And hearing the stream too was just so beautiful. That was another thing, is that it's so quiet. It's so quiet there, and it's so much land, so much sky. It's just gorgeous, just really, really gorgeous. We also ran into some bison traffic. So we saw bison a lot actually while we were driving, you know, through, but most of the time it was like one, and we were like, there's really no herds, which is really unheard of. But then on the way out, boom, we had to stop because the bison were just crossing the street, and you know, they're taking their time. Obviously, we're on their territory, but it was crazy to see it because there's herd over here, they're in the front of the cars. So we were just kind of waiting, like, okay, we just have to wait for them to pass, because there was babies, there was big ones, and it was so cool to be close to them in the car, obviously, but just to ride by and just sit there next to them inside the car safely. But you could hear them like ripping the grass out of the ground. It was so cool, and you think like, oh, that doesn't sound very cool, but I don't know, it was just because it was so quiet there, you know, you could hear everything, and it was just like they were ripping the grass out of the ground. And I was surprised to see their tongues coming out. They're pretty long, which shouldn't be surprising to me considering that I eat cow tongue. But anyway, it was really cool to see them up close, and like they seem awkward the way that they move, but they would come down and like kind of run down the hill. But you know, they're so top heavy, and it was just, oh my gosh, it was so cool to see them up close like that. We did see 2 bears, but it was pretty far, so we were coming up around this ledge that was not a designated stop here and take pictures and walk around. It was like one of the areas where it's like road and then huge cliff. So there's like this much of a shoulder there, basically. It's like white line and like this much road left. So we saw a bunch of people that were parked along there, and a bunch of people out with cameras that are like 10 feet long, you know? And so we were like, oh, what's going on? And of course we had to slow down because there's people walking and crossing, and there's like no room on the road, basically. And then we looked down, and it was a huge, huge incline down, and there were a couple of bears. So we were able to see it from a distance, which is the best way to see a bear, I guess, you know, in your car, in a very, very large distance. So we didn't stop, aside from having to go slowly on the road, but you know, that's not an area where you stop, even though a bunch of people were stopping to get those pictures, because you gotta sell postcards, right? So you need a picture of something. So another thing that we did that was really, really fun was tell jokes. I'm super punny, and I love pun jokes. I love dad jokes. They're just amazing, and I just, you know, the cornier the better. And one thing that happened, so this was on a Friday, and a bunch of the guys were working on the greenhouse. They were building a greenhouse, and one of them was using a drill, and he was, you know, drilling for a long time, and he's like, oh man, you know, my wrist is starting to hurt. I'm really gonna have a sore wrist tomorrow. And then another one was like, no, you're not gonna have a sore wrist tomorrow. Like, you know what you're gonna have? And he's like, no, I'm gonna have a sore wrist tomorrow. And he's like, no, you're gonna have a Sabbath Rest tomorrow. Sabbath Rest, wrist. Brilliant, love it. Of course, everybody else is like, not funny. I loved it though. So another thing that we did was, this was a brilliant idea from a couple, and they did a skit where they take characters from scripture and kind of give them a backstory, bring them to life, kind of like how you would, just come up with a character like through improv. But it's more about like learning that character, studying that character, and kind of giving them a story that can further praise Yah. So this idea actually just, Yahuwah blessed me with this idea when I saw the most beautiful sunrise. I mean, all of the sunrises that I saw were beautiful, but I was out there, I was just looking at the sunrise, and all this information came to me. So this was a really fun character to do, and I'll do the skit for you so you can see. So it's great to see you all today, because I used to be blind. I used to beg, and I was blind. And a lot of people would ask, is it the father who sinned, or is it the son who sinned? And this wonderful man came into town. Nobody knew who he was. He spoke in parables. And he said, no, no, no. It is neither the father nor the son who sinned. It is Yahuwah manifesting in him. And this man took me by the arm, and he brought me out of town, and he spit down on the ground. And I was like, what is he about to do? So he spit on the ground, formed this murky substance, and put it on my eyes. He wiped it away, and I could see. And he says, don't tell anyone. Don't go into the town, don't tell them who I am, and don't tell them what I did. So I took this gift and I went traveling, because I've always wanted to travel, but I always thought, what's the point? I can't see. So I traveled all over the place. I went to Disney, and I went to the big Epcot, and I went to all of the little areas of the world. So I got a little taste of every country in the world. I went to Paris, and I went all the way to the top of the Eiffel Tower, and it was at night, and I saw all the city lights. They were so beautiful, just sparkling, just like the Mazzaroth. I went to Six Flags, and I went all the way to the top of the King de Ka, huge roller coaster, and I got to see all of New Jersey. It wasn't as pretty as Paris, but it was still a great sight to see. I went to the Bahamas, and I got to swim and snorkel, and the water was so crystal clear blue. You could see all the way down to the bottom, all the coral, all the fish, the sand. It was beautiful, just as blue as the sky. You actually couldn't tell where the sky ended and where the water began. I went to Georgia, camped, which was really strange. I thought, oh, I'm going to the south, it's gonna be hot, and nope, it was wet and cold at night. But I got to see all different types of people from all around the US, all around the world, and I got to see that we all have the same mannerisms, we all have the same kind of jokes and style of talking, and it was just really beautiful to come together with my brothers and sisters in that way. I went to Arizona, and I got to go saltwater river water rafting. I saw wild horses just living life. It was so beautiful. And there were some parts of the river that were nice and slow, and then other parts that were super fast, and there was ripples everywhere because of all the rocks that were under the water, and it was pretty shallow in those areas. I went to New York City, and of course had to go to Times Square, because that's what all the tourists do, but the real beauty is in Queens, Flushing Meadows Corona Park. Got to see the big globe with the water, and these beautiful trees that look like puzzle trees because of the way that the bark falls off. Caught a few soccer games. Beautiful, beautiful, massive park. And I got to see beautiful Montana, that big Montana sky. I went to Yellowstone and got to see the Yellowstone Grand Canyon. I saw bison and bears and elk that scream like little girls. It was so beautiful, and it was just a magnificent experience. And I always think back on that day when that man healed my sight. And he told me, don't tell anyone, don't go into town, don't tell anyone what I did, don't tell anyone who I am. And it's very humbling, because he gave me such a beautiful gift, the gift of sight. But no matter how much I travel, no matter where I go, no matter how many beautiful sights I see, I know that I will never see anything as beautiful as that man who healed me and gave me the gift of sight. Isn't that so cool? Like, this guy, we don't even have his name, and all of this information just, Yahuwah blessed me with all of this information as I was looking at the sunrise. I was like, oh, that's so much fun. Meanwhile, when they tell me about it, I'm like, I like the idea of doing a skit, but I have no idea. I don't know people in the Bible. I'm still very new, I'm still learning, but yeah, all of that just, oh my gosh, it was just so much fun, so beautiful. So I love how it ties together, and all of those little bits and pieces are just different places that I've been in my life. Obviously now I would never go to Disney or anything like that, but it was a lot of fun, you know, putting that skit together. So lastly, I wanted to share some airplane pictures that I took. So I went from Montana to Atlanta, and it was like a 3-hour flight, and it was during the day in the afternoon. So I just looked outside the entire time. So it was really cool to see everything from up above, like to see how the land is structured and to see the mountains and to see like where the farms are and where the houses are. And it was cool to see like it's mostly land. There's not that much houses and stuff, and we're overpopulated. There's not that many houses. And you know, just seeing the mountains and then seeing all of the very intricately shaped pieces of land, and even seeing the snow on top of the mountains. Oh my gosh, and just seeing like all the different crevices. I saw this one area that looked really cool. It like kind of reminded me of heart. The fat that's on the heart looks exactly like this land. And then I saw these things that kind of look like computers that are all connected to each other, which I thought was really interesting and really, really weird. These last two pictures I'm gonna throw up there, but I'm not gonna tell you why, and I want you to guess why I'm showing these pictures. I'm interested to see who can guess. Put it in the comments. Who can guess why I'm showing you these two pictures? So I had an amazing, amazing time in Montana with my brothers and sisters, and I am so grateful that I got to have that trip. And I am very grateful that you are here. Thank you so much for watching a little bit of my personal life. I know this has nothing to do with cats, but at the same time, it has everything to do with cats because I wouldn't have this business without Yahweh. Blessings to you all. Thank you for watching.
Such a big sky.